on a very like superficial surface level, that might seem like that's the right thing to do and that's working. I'm here to tell you, you may actually be hurting your dog by doing that. What's up, YouTube? I am back. I apologize for yet another hiatus. Hopefully that won't happen again. I'm back better than ever. Life is busy. Business is crazy. But I am here to help you guys sift through this ridiculously hard to understand industry of how to actually train your dog and dispel the myths, the rumors, and the lies and the misinformation that's out there, and just show you stuff that actually works. And today we have a fun one. We are going to talk about exercise, physical activity, what it is not. I think most people think that, a tired dog is a good dog. The path to a calmer dog is just physical exertion, activity, exercise, things like that. Just give them more walks, more exercise, take them to the dog parks, doggy daycare, more of this, more of that. And that's really only one piece of the puzzle. And I am here to show you the rest of the puzzle that most people are probably missing. And at the end of this video, I'm going to show you what I found to be by far the most efficient way to wear out your dog, both mind and body, so make sure you stick around for that. Obviously, yes, absolutely, exercise is important to your dog. It's a necessary part of their physical well-being. It's good for their joints, their bones, their muscle development, helps prevent weight gain or get rid of weight if they're overweight, but it does not create a calm dog. I have had so many clients over the years that they're active people. They have active breeds and, really energetic types of dogs. And, they're like, hey, I run this dog 5 miles a day. And we come home and, he naps for an hour and then he's right back up and running around again, pacing in the house, bouncing off the walls and all these things. And I always joke and tell them, like, yeah, well, you need to run 6 miles now. And that's just the truth of it. You could run your mile. You could run your dog a mile every day. After a while, you're going to have to run 2 miles. And the science has shown this. There's not a ton of studies on this stuff, but there are some, and I'm going to dig into some of those in this video to kind of give you some receipts for the claims I'm going to make here. But they adapt to the physical exercise just like people do. So all you're doing is you're conditioning the dog to need more physical activity to get the same tiredness. Now, physical tiredness is not the same as mental tiredness, and we're going to talk about that here in a second. But first, I want to talk about the pitfall I think a lot of people fall into, where you have a dog that it's a maybe a high drive dog or just an active breed, and as an owner, you want to give them what they need. So you're like, okay, they need more exercise because they're restless in the house. And so maybe you take them to doggy daycare or a dog park or something, and they run around forever, and they come home and they're tired for a little bit, and on a very like superficial surface level, that might seem like that's the right thing to do and that's working. I'm here to tell you, you may actually be hurting your dog by doing that. And take a look at this study here, where it shows that dogs that had prolonged mindless physical activity for long periods of time, it caused a high spike, a high increase in their cortisol levels. And you also have, and this is when dog trainers talk about these things, like dopamine and adrenaline and cortisol and things like that. I think most people don't really, they throw these words around and they're not really understanding what it's doing physiologically to the dog, but I'm here to change that for you today. When a dog is exhibiting high levels of arousal, and meaning they're overly energetic mindless play, they're running around, they're wrestling with dogs, they're jumping, they're barking, they're chasing things, that causes an adrenaline dump, it causes a spike in cortisol, and if they stay in that environment for a prolonged period of time, it does something physiologically to them where it actually will make them more restless. So you might get a dog that goes home after running and playing at the dog park for an hour or two, and they might look physically tired, but their mind is frazzled. they're actually going to be more restless and anxious and stressed and things. Because their hormones are all over the place. Because these high levels of mindless activity, it's fun, and it's an addictive thing. That's why some people are like adrenaline junkies and things like that. But prolonged exposure to it is detrimental. Let me use the example of my son at his fourth birthday party. We went to one of those trampoline parks, and he had a bunch of his friends there. He had never been someplace like that. It's already kind of, it's a loud, colorful environment, and he's running around, jumping on things, doing obstacles, jumping in the little foam pit thing, and all these things. And he just played and played and played and played and played. And we didn't regulate it. We didn't stop him or slow him down. We just let him play. And then by the time it was time for everybody to settle down, eat pizza, cake, open up presents, he could not enjoy it. He was so overstimulated. He was anxious. He was stressed. And even the next day, he had like cold-like symptoms. And what that was he had a prolonged exposure to high levels of adrenaline, high levels of cortisol. And what happens when you hear about people that have, life or death situations, and your adrenaline really spikes because it's a survival instinct. Then afterwards they crash. And a lot of times, like people that are involved in, self-defense scenarios where maybe, they had to, defend themselves and take the life of somebody else in their defense. A lot of times they have to go to the hospital after because that adrenaline dump at the end, and the crash from it is so severe. That is what we do to our dogs when we allow them to just go mindlessly run around and wrestle for hours sometimes until okay, they're tired, let's go home now. And then they go home and you think that it works, they're relaxed. But just because their body is relaxed doesn't mean that their mind is. And I can promise you it's not. If you are still struggling with their behavior in the home, it's likely the over-arousal is the culprit. So what's the solution? And I'm going to get into a couple more studies here in a minute, but first I want to show you an example here of how I do it, how we structure the energetic play and things. Because one of the big questions I get from a lot of my clients, our most popular program that we do is a 4-week long board and train combined with a private lesson package for owner education. And one of the big questions that we always get before clients sign up is how long is the dog, confined to a kennel all day? And it's not an unfair question. I mean, I would want to know that too. I for one, the type of kennel environment that the dog is in matters. There's also been studies on shelter dogs, and you just walk into a shelter and you can see it. You don't need a study for that. Prolonged confinement without outlets for their natural drives, and their desire to exercise and have stimulation and things like that. That's detrimental to dogs. Shelter dogs go crazy, and it takes them a while to decompress and settle back into a normal rhythm when they get adopted and go to a home. My kennel environment, it's not even really a kennel. I run the whole business out of my home, and we have a kennel room with all commercial grade kennels and things like that. But it's an entirely different low stimulation type of kennel. It's not chaotic. There's not dogs barking constantly. So that matters there. But it's still a fair question. How long is the dog confined in a crate? Because nobody wants to think about their dog sitting in a prison cell all day, right? So it's a point of contention for a lot of people, and I understand why. But here's how I want you to look at it. In a more structured environment, such as a training environment, and what I encourage a lot of dog owners and my clients to do at home is to have structured exercise, play, stimulation time, structured rest time. I'm going to get into all that, why rest is important here in a second as well. But here during training, for one, because I this is all I do, 24/7. I don't really take days off. I can't. I got dogs here that need attention, and they need stuff every single day. Food, water, training, exercise. What I'm getting paid to do. So because I'm available to do that all day long, for one, I can help dogs get settled, stay settled in the crate. I can keep the kennel environment calm and quiet in a purposeful, structured rest place. That being said, these dogs also get more interactive, or more human interaction, more interactive activity here than they likely do at home, because I don't take the dog for a walk in the morning, go to work, and then come back and then train them a little bit and then go to bed. They're in and out all day long. And I tell everybody too, while they're here, like by 3:00, they want to be in their kennels. They're tired. And here's why. So take a look at this. This is my super scientific study that I decided to do, just to kind of get a baseline level of data, I guess, to share with you guys. I strapped my Garmin Instinct watch, GPS watch, to Legends, the Shepherd's collar here, and just went out and did a normal average 15-minute long training session. Training sessions here are, sometimes we might be doing, shorter ones, sometimes we might be doing long ones, but 15 minutes is about an average number. So I wanted to see how much physical activity he was actually getting during that. And this is just physical activity here. In that 15-minute session, he moved just a hair over half a mile, 0.51 miles. That doesn't tell the whole story, but just from a number standpoint, in 15 minutes, he moved half a mile. That's one training session, on average. And on any given day, these dogs here are probably getting an average of 6 training sessions in a day. So they're moving at least 3 miles a day. And that's just the physical distance that the dog is traveling. That doesn't tell the whole story. When we combine both mental and physical activity, it will wear the dog out exponentially faster. And I'm going to provide some receipts for that as well here in a second. Stay tuned. But as you can see here with Legend, he's moving, but he's focused, and we're doing a lot of healing. This is a typical training session for a dog that knows all these commands at this point. It's obviously going to be different in the earlier stages when we're first teaching, but we're still using a ton of movement. So I don't think that the distance traveled would be any less, honestly, when we're working on like luring the dog. We're playing food chasing games as a reward and things like that. Those dogs are running back and forth constantly. It's exhausting some days. But so we're doing a lot of healing, some stops, some sits, some distance recalls and things like that. But the entire time he's having to focus. He's not allowed to sniff. He has to stay focused on me. So he's working his brain constantly, and he's problem solving puzzles the entire time, and getting paid for it. So he is getting both the physical and mental activity that dogs need, but in a focused, structured way. And that is far better. And here's why. So take a look at this study. Research shows that training, problem solving, and enrichment, they all improve impulse control. They improve the dog's flexibility, they lower stress, and all kinds of benefits that you're not going to get from a mindless walk where you're just kind of walking and letting your dog roam and sniff, or just letting your dog mindlessly run at a dog park. Combining the two that's the sweet spot. When you combine mental and physical activity, it is the sweet spot for efficiency for your typical everyday average pet dog owner. You have a life, you have stuff you have to do. You're not trying to take on a second job, training and playing with your dog and things like that. So giving your dog the outlets that they need in an efficient manner is very crucial. There's a whole nother piece of this, so let's talk about the importance of rest. This is an important topic, and studies show, just like athletes, after a training or practice session, they need to recover from that working session. There's been studies done both on shelter dogs and working dogs, or this study here on sled dogs that I'll cite here if you want to look it up. That's pretty interesting. That structured rest prevents burnout. it is important for them to learn how to go decompress, shut their brain off for a little bit, and just recover from all the physical and mental activity that life is to them. That's why crate time is an efficient way to do that. If you properly teach your dog how to relax in a crate, it becomes a meditative thing. They need it. They have to have it. It is a healthy thing for them to do. It is their rest time, rest and recovery time in between bouts of play and exercise and training. In this study here, they concluded that rest days, they restored motivation in the dogs. So after, working for a period of time, when you give them purposeful recovery, it allows their body to just kind of reset and get ready for the next go around. Just like working out at the gym, you're not going hard 24/7. You can't. You have to give yourself rest and recovery days. Real growth happens when you're resting and you're recovering. Dogs will, after a hard training session, or not even a hard, just a mentally stimulating training session, when they get 20-30 minutes to just go, and once they understand that the crate is their place for that rest, relaxation, that meditative state that we want them to have, then when they go and they actually recover for 20 minutes, half the time, like when we get them out the next time for training, whatever we were practicing the first time that maybe hadn't clicked yet, the first 1 or 2 reps, it's like, bam, they got it. It's because they were processing. And you have to give them time to do that. It is not healthy for dogs to just be go, go, go 24/7. Their mind never shuts off. And then we wonder why so many dogs suffer from anxious types of behavior. They have no rest and relaxation. That's why. Let me give you another personal story here. When my daughter was born, we did a home birth with her, and that was an adventure in and of itself. I didn't even take any time off work. Because I run the business out of my home, we had a handful of dogs in the kennel. And luckily I have employees to help me as well. But when she was born, obviously my wife needed a lot of help from me. So our personal dogs, they got nothing out of me for like 3 days. They got food, water, bathroom breaks, and that was the extent of it. We weren't playing, we weren't training. They weren't in our bedroom where my wife was recovering with the new baby. After 3 days, on that third day, and I should preface this to say that these are all like fully trained dogs. So like if you have a dog that is not done with this training process, you can't call it a fully trained dog to where they're never really done or complete, but a fully I don't know what you want to call fully developed trained dog or whatever. They're on leash, off leash trained and all that. So they understand because both the training and the rules and expectations that we set in our home that we use the training to teach, they were able to handle all that downtime relatively well, extremely well for 2 days. The third day, though, they started getting restless, and I started to feel like I was about to have a mutiny on my hands if I didn't do something. But I was busy. I was keeping the business going. I was helping my wife with the new baby. Keeping my house in order, so to speak. So all I did was twice a day, 10 minutes at a time, I took each dog out and we just did a structured play session where we did some training, and I used either fetch or tug as a reward twice a day for 10 minutes, 20 minutes a day. That was it. Sometimes it was 5 minutes a day. That was enough to satisfy them. They were good. They got their physical exercise, they got their mental brain work done, and they were able to just go lay down on a bed and chew a bone if they were bored. That is the power of this. If you stuck around this long, first off, thank you. Here's your payoff for that. I'm going to show you what I found is by far the most efficient way to wear out a dog's mind and body at the same time. This is fantastic for busy people. It's also if you're not busy, but you just want to see your dog improve in their training and also like improve their conditioning. This is a really efficient way to do it. All I did was, and going back to my super science experiment that I did with the Shepherd earlier, out of curiosity, I also put my Garmin watch on her collar for this session. And all I'm doing here is playing chuck it. I'm playing fetch with the chuck it. But more than that, because I need to make sure that I'm working her brain, because she will run aimlessly after this ball for hours if I let her. But by forcing her to use her head a little bit here, and all I'm doing mostly here, I'm throwing some commands at her, but the main focus of the session was because she's being really, really pushy and really sloppy with her heel positioning. So I'm forcing her to find the right position and to look at me before I throw it. So she can't just shut her brain off and just go full like caveman on me. Cave dog, is that a thing? Whatever. But she has to think. I'm forcing her to problem solve while she's exerting all this physical activity. And we just keep repping it out. She doesn't get the ball until she does the right thing. And she made it a total of 8.5 minutes. In those 8.5 minutes, she covered 0.6 of a mile. So a little bit more than the 15-minute session with the shepherd. But after 8.5 minutes, she went down and laid in the shade. She was done. And this was her after the session when we came back in. And that right there is the difference between mindless exercise and structured focus work. It's faster, smarter, calmer. And if you're interested in that, that's exactly what we teach in our program. So give us a subscribe if you want to learn more. Like I said, I'm going to be back with more insight into the dog training industry and how dogs learn, how they think, and how to sift through all the nonsense that's out there and teach you what actually works. Happy training, guys.